Okay, I'm back at the lathe today. The last video I did was the case trimmer, and I need to put some sort of a measuring device on my tailstock here. And I wanted to show you what I came up with. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and I got the idea from, I'll have to go and look and see who this guy was, but he found a nut like this to use as the collar. It's going to fit on this barrel, and this is the tailstock barrel where your drill chuck goes. I'm going to cut out the threads with a boring bar, and I'll make the diameter just large enough to fit over this barrel, and then I will drop a hole here and maybe here for grub screws, brass grub screws, to keep the nut solid on the barrel. Now, as best as possible, I'm going to try and keep this flat. And I got on, we'll keep it on there flat. I got on Amazon and I found this. This is a caliper that's made for, a Weiss, kind of a DRO, poor man's DRO. It's got, most guys you see on the internet take an old caliper and cut off the jaws, cut the back off, and put something like this on the front so that it can be mounted to the tailstock, something like this. Well, this came with the mounting bracket, which I'm going to put somewhere here, and then mount this to the mounting bracket somewhere down here so I can read the numbers. And then I'm going to put some sort of a spacer, probably make it out of aluminum. This is a scrap piece of an aluminum I have. I'm just going to turn this down, and I'm going to make it the exact length that I'm going to need to make this flat. So I'll attach it to the bolt with a couple of screws, and then one screw into the aluminum that's threaded onto this, kind of like this. So I'll have this attached to here, this attached here, spaced perfectly so that this is flat, because we don't want this thing called cosine error. We want to try and get this as straight across as we can so we get a true linear direction, a true linear measurement, right? And if you don't know what cosine error is, there's a real neat video done by this old Tony. He talks about cosine error in one of his videos. So essentially, if you go back to trigonometry and in high school, it's that slight angle off of parallel, in the 30, 60, 90 triangle, the right triangle, that causes your linear measurements to be off by a tiny bit. So the straighter across we get this, and the more true it is to the axis that goes out this way, the more accurate our measurements are going to be in the tailstock. I'm going to try and get it within 2/10, something like that. So we'll mount this here. I'm going to put one hole in the tailstock to mount this. I'm going to position the nut so that it is in the same plane as this mounting bracket. And then I'll measure the distance with telescopic measuring tools between there, and if I have one here, I've got one here somewhere. They're all scattered all over because something like this, but bigger. And I'll measure that distance, and I'll use a caliper and get the exact distance, and then turn this down to that thickness. Put a couple of holes in it. Put a couple of threaded holes in the nut, and screw this down to it. And then in the center, I'll put a hole for this, which has some adjustment to it, and that'll go on there. And then the straighter I get this across, the more accurate my measurement's going to be. So this is going to be my DRO. Now I have figured out that this part here is going to be too long, because as this retracts, like let's say I mount the DRO here, and as that comes back, you'll see that the back of the measuring tool is going to hit the wheel. So I'm going to have to probably cut off. I'll cut off where it says stainless hardened. I'll probably cut it right there. That way I'll have the full range to here without, and I'll still be able to see inch, millimeter. I'll still have the full scale here, the analog scale to read, as well as the digital scale. And I think that's the max. Yeah, that's about the max that the barrel goes, about right there. So yeah, I'll mount that there. It'll be at a good angle for me to read, and I'll have a DRO on the tailstock. I'll bring you back when this is done, but essentially the operations are going to be, you know, cut the threads out of the nut with a horizontal boring bar, because it almost fits now with the threads. I bet you if I cut those threads out, it'll fit and be very loose. But if I put grub screws in here, I bought some brass grub screws. I'll sink a hole here, thread it, put the grub screws in, and that'll pinch it up against the bar without marring this much, because they're brass. Get this squared up, and then mount the DRO here. Cut this, drill a hole here for the mounting bracket, and a hole here somewhere for this mounting bracket. And I think Bob's your uncle, as the metalworking people like to say all the time. I've noticed. Bob's your uncle. Susan's your great-grandmother. I don't know. All right, there you go. Once I get this all together, I'll show you in another video. But okay, yeah, operation. So bore out the threads, fit this, put the grub screws in, probably at, you know, 180 degrees of each other. Maybe I'll put a grub screw here and here, mount this sideways, put my mounting hole here for the DRO, drill the other mounting hole on the side of the tailstock here, one hole. I know it's almost sacrilege to be drilling into your machine, but I'll tell you, this machine was pretty cheap. It's been 20 years since I've dealt with any kind of machining operations, and I wasn't sure if I'm gonna, you know, continue to do this kind of stuff, or, you know, just have a machine so I can take care of small little machining jobs on the farm. I would like a bigger machine, I think, now that I've worked with this one. This machine here is a Chinese machine. Very little support that I've found on the internet. I don't see very many people that have this particular machine. I made a big mistake in that I ordered it with a mill. The clearance here is so small that it's hard for this to be of any use other than maybe drilling things on the lathe. So really what you need is a separate mill, separate lathe. But actually what this is going to do is allow me to do small little projects so I can hone my skills again, and then, you know, I'll feel more worthy of a real machine in the future. But as it stands, I think this machine is going to be great for gunsmithing things, shy of, you know, rebarreling or rechambering a rifle. I think my next little project I'm going to do on the lathe, and I'll film it. I have an LCP1, one of the first LCPs, and the big problem with that LCP is the sights. The sights were not very useful. So what I'm going to try and do is mount the slide and cut dovetails in the slide so that I can mount a better rear sight. I might even work on the front sight too and put a dovetail in there so that I can put in some aftermarket sights on that. I bought the, well, I should show you, I got it in my pocket. I have the new LCP pocket carry gun. This thing is, I mean, I'll show you what I did to my first LCP. I've got a video in where I worked on the trigger, worked on the grip a little bit, but you can see, I'm not sure if this is in focus, but the new LCP, you can see the sights, they're dovetailed in, and they're a lot more usable. And I love these little 380s. You can just put them in your pocket. I carry it around the farm. You never know, you know, you be walking and you might come into something that you might need a weapon for, and I got it right in my pocket. Anyway, so there you go. I'm going to put this up as a short. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is, for whatever reason, I can't remember when I first started doing YouTube videos. My first series of videos was building an AK-74. Those are still on YouTube. I don't think I've gotten enough press regarding those videos. I think when I do, YouTube's probably going to have a shit fit and shut my channel down, or I don't know. I've never gotten a dime from any YouTube video from the time I started. But it's interesting that, you know, I've been on YouTube and I've seen crazy videos get, you know, subscribers, and it's been, shoot, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And for a while there, I only had like 50 subscribers. And then I signed up for their premium, YouTube Premium. And then all of a sudden I got 150 more subscribers. I guess they decided to show some of my videos, but I think when they find out that I have gunsmithing videos on there, they're probably gonna shut me down, or anyway. So, but this is going to be a project for the lathe. I think it's going to be a neat project. I'm going to do the stuff. I mean, if you want to learn how to do the operations, there are better guys than me out there that can show you the different operations. I'm just trying to kind of illustrate the sequence of operations that I'm going to do to put this together so that I have a DRO here, which I think will come in handy for the case trimming thing that I showed you last video. Well, thanks for listening. I'll show you a quick video once I get this all together. If any of you got this particular model of lathe out there and mill, I mean, maybe we can start a little community on YouTube where, you know, hey, I did this with my lathe and I improved it this way, or whatever. Or if you decide that you want to pick one of these up used and you find one and you want to become part of this community, that would really be great. I mean, we can kind of do this step by step. But yeah, so to make this more usable, Tailstock DRO. That's it. Thank you.